Well, this is crazy. You know, it seems like every other day, another celebrity is having a meltdown.
Yes, literally like every other day.
Just going crazy.
I know. From Charlie Sheen and Demi Moore to Lindsay Lohan and now Amanda Bynes. What's causing all of these stars to lose it? Well, here to help us understand the complicated A-list mind is clinical psychologist Sonia R. Banks. Sonia,
Yes.
you've got to help us understand what is going on with these celebrities.
Yeah, it's a challenging world out there, but they seem to deal with it in very odd ways.
Well, they don't live like us. Clearly, they don't vacation like us. Shannon and I were in the bed and on the couch, and they were in Maui. But they also don't have meltdowns like us either. Why are they unraveling so public and so epic?
Well, everything's animated in their world. It's like they're always on front stage, and so no matter what's happening to them, it looks larger than life. So often they may have the same weak coping strategies that your neighbor has, or difficulty with behavior. Biologically, they came to the planet just as loaded with deficiencies as the next person, but when you're living a life on social media, Twitter, and you're in front of all of these folks expecting you to come across as one thing when you may be another, you can melt down. You can just come apart very easily.
Do you think it's the pressure to be perfect or the pressure to maintain a facade that is not in keeping with who they really are that triggers these meltdowns?
Absolutely. You're living on two opposite poles. You know, when you're home with your family, you know how relaxed you are, where you are, and then all of a sudden you have to rev up and be this persona all the time. So their life shifts. And if you're not born into a world where you have a support system that really gravitates at helping you with that, you can easily come apart.
Well, you say these two peoples that you speak of, do you think it's almost like an alter ego type of persona that some of these people are living in their everyday life?
Yeah, often it is. You're branded, and that brand is all and very important to you. You can see how people protect themselves and protect the brand. And over time, even if you have a lovely temperament, and you know some people have been in the field for 30 years and they unravel, you can start to weaken, and often you don't know it. So you have to watch the stressors in your life. You have to look at your behavior. Do you have coping strategies that work? Alcohol is not one of them, as you can see, and it's one of the ones they go to regularly.
And neither is drugs, and I know Amanda Bynes just got in some trouble for allegedly having some drugs in her possession, but you know, she wasn't even getting any attention until this happened. A month ago, people weren't talking about her. So do you think a lot of these celebrities are just trying to, again, work on that brand or get their name out there, get some attention?
Yeah, well, see, that's what we don't know. How much of this is staged, how much of this is planned, and how much is just, I've lost it. I don't know how to speak to a cop or an officer, and I don't know what to do when I feel down. I think it's a combination, frankly. I think they've got an image, they've got to stay in the public eye, and somewhere between depression and dysphoria, it sometimes comes out as just this bizarre way of unraveling for us and for their attention.
Depression and dysphoria. What does dysphoria mean for those in the audience who don't know?
Well,
I know the word.
Of course.
Right. Yes. Of course. Well, if you look at it on a continuum, like 1 to 10, and you think that this level of depression or really kind of the curl up, I don't know what I'm doing, that's 1, that's 10. And if you look at 1 at dysphoria, kind of feeling grumpy and irritable, they're always riding this continuum. And sometimes you don't know where you are until you're up against the worst part of yourself, which is someone who doesn't believe in the hype and doesn't believe in the image. And that's what I call make-believe. So you go from the biological problem to the behavior that you show, you don't have coping strategies for, and then finally you're living your own make-believe and you're all out of balance. It's the 4 Bs that always lead to the meltdown.
Now, do you think that this industry just inevitably preys on a person's psyche? Like it is inevitable that these people will suffer some sort of meltdown, breakdown, you know, battle drugs or alcohol. It just seems like everyone in Hollywood has a similar trajectory.
Yeah, it's really hard. I mean, you want to maintain boundaries in your life. Imagine your life without boundaries, and every time they go out, they're up against something tearing away a boundary. So I think it is somewhat inevitable. You'll notice some of the older actors from days before, they were really closed-guarded, closed-minded, and they stayed away from this exposure factor. Nowadays, you don't have that. Someone's taking your picture all the time, someone's tweeting, you're Instagramming. Maybe it's overexposure that causes you to fall apart faster.
Okay, so would you say that some of these behaviors are normal and they're just, you know, you talk about all the tweeting and pictures and then they're just blown out of proportion by the press? Or are these quiet cries for help? Because, you know, Britney Spears shaving her head, beating a van with an umbrella, that's not necessarily normal to me.
We don't do that. I think so, but look at their age also. So we have adolescents, right? So you're talking about, you know, Bieber, he's only 16. So if he was doing that, no one had a camera on him pulling pulling his pants down and giving people the finger. You know, you get chastised, you're a teenager, that behavior gets corrected. But when you're a celebrity, it gets rewarded. So yeah, some of this is normal, age-related, developmentally accurate behavior. But when it's on a front screen and it's in the beginning of your favorite, you know, magazine, it looks horrible.
Now, you've said that a meltdown can occur when life doesn't meet the narrative in your mind. What do you mean by that?
So when you're being branded, right, there's this whole fantasy, this story you tell yourself about who you're going to be. I'm going to be in the image of Whitney Houston. I'm going to be in the image of whoever, Nat King Cole, if you're doing a retro. When you start to not look like that image, you got a lot of competition. There's all kinds of new talent just bubbling up around you. You're afraid, and you may start to unravel. No one can see the quiet pain at night, so you drink it away, you drug it away, you may even sex it away. All of those are drugs of choice. Meanwhile, you're still not living up to this silent narrative in your mind. And you're the only one who knows that story, unless you have a system support, hopefully, that can help you kind of live it differently.
Okay, now you mentioned your 4 B's earlier, but can you break it down and tell us how this test that you have developed can help people figure out where their issues come from and how they can best treat those issues that they're going through?
Absolutely. Well, the first one is balance. I'm going to go in reverse. If your life isn't balanced, you know it. You know when you're not sleeping enough, when you're not eating right, when you don't have the family support, when your coping isn't working. And we have all kinds of external environmental cues to remind us. The police officer pulling you over, your mom not hearing from you. Then you go into your biology. What did you come into the planet loaded as? Are you the type of person that needs more rest? Are you the type of person that gets irritable? That's what therapists are for. And nowadays, all of the celebrities should have their own therapists and spiritual director,
You
by
think
the way.
so? Really?
Absolutely.
So like before the trainer,
Yes.
before the
Yes,
chef,
absolutely.
before the stylist, they should have a
Therapist and a spiritual director if you want to get centered. So you have to know who you came to the planet as, right? And then next you have behaviors. What are your central tendencies? What do you normally do as a behavior? And try to make sure you're getting back to that. Paul Newman talked about that a lot with his Life with Joanne Woodward. And then at the end, you want to be able to pay attention to your behaviors. People in your family tell you all the time when you are off center, but you don't listen to it because you think the narrative in your mind is helping you brand yourself and become more of a celebrity. Forget about it. Listen to what they're telling you. Somebody in your life knows you, and they know who you really are. Make sure your narrative in your mind lines up with the narrative that they're telling you that you are.
That's very good advice. When you look at an Amanda Bynes, and you're an expert, what goes through your mind? How would you help her?
Oh my goodness. Well, the first thing I want to do is help her figure out who she is. Take away the glam, take away the narrative in your mind, sit down and just figure out, if nothing else was important to you, where do you want to be? And then build back, reconstruct your identity, and you can do that. Often someone is feeding you, this is what you need to do to make money, this is what you need to do to get on screen more. So I would help her literally reconstruct her identity around the things that she is interested in. And I'm not sure she's where she wants to be. I think that's why she's self-medicating.
What about, say, like a Kanye West or a Justin Bieber? I mean,
Oh, yeah,
Kanye West
bless his
clearly
heart.
did not really deal with the death of his mother.
Right.
Justin Bieber is clearly probably overwhelmed by this sudden backlash. He was the golden boy for
sure
years, and
was.
now he's getting booed at the Billboard Awards.
Absolutely.
So what advice would you give someone like
Well,
Bieber?
Kanye, I think, has unresolved grief. It's clear because it looks like the anger just kind of takes advantage of him, and then he ends up doing this kind of faux apology. So I really want him to deal with the untreated grief and talk about what happened when Mom died. You know, his dad used to be a celeb back in the 60s of a frame and kind of an angry, kind of revolutionary framework, Black Panther. So he may be working through some of these old childhood, you know, identities. So I'd want to work with the unresolved grief, which shows up as anger and depression, right?
Okay, and that's why he's going off having these outspurts and things
And
like
I
that.
don't think he's connected the two. And so sometimes someone has to help you put it together. And then with Bieber, he's 16. He needs a life that an adolescent can put all that creative energy into. Is he an artist? Can he draw? Can he sculpt? Can he do something else with that energy besides show us, you know, how dysfunctional you can be at 16?
Okay, well, clearly a lot of these celebrity meltdowns aren't going anywhere. They're going to
Right.
keep happening.
Oh,
We're going to
yeah.
keep seeing them even more with social media nowadays. But
Right.
what lessons can we take away from their meltdowns? What can we
Right.
learn from, besides just, gossiping and more
Yeah,
headlines?
because we love to listen to this because in part,
Why?
because it kind of triggers our own frailties. We're like, okay, I don't feel good. Like I wanted to kind of drink last night, but instead, I talked to the kids, petted the dog, painted a picture of my mother. So we cope, so we're thinking they should cope. So some of what we do is hold them in that same esteem. But 2 lessons to learn. 1, before you start and launch out, get yourself the support you need. Your therapist, spiritual director. Of course you want to work out. Make sure you've got these things in place, and then have someone you trust who knows who you are feed back to you what you need. Don't believe the hype. The story in your mind could have gone askew. Pick a story that makes sense and stick with it.
I like that.
That is great advice.
Stick a story and a character. You should be that character.
Something that you're proud of.
Right.
Something that you're proud of.
All right, Dr. Sonia,
Dr.
thank you so
Sonia,
much.
this is
breaking it
fun.
down.
Thank you. Thank
Well, I've got
you.
my story. You got your story.
It's already straight.
We're
Don't worry.
sticking to it. And you stick with us. So you're watching Arise Entertainment 360.